All right. Hey, good morning. My name is Mark. I'm one of the teaching pastors here and excited to continue this study into the Ten Commandments, exactly what these things are about and what they mean. Hey, just side note, just had a conversation with our Cuba team leader, Malachi, just a minute ago, and that team is back, and it went awesome. He made a statement like maybe the best trip yet. So anyway, excited to report more about that, but thank you so much for your prayers and everybody that's been a part of that with them, because that's pretty awesome. I really have. I've been excited about all this series. This one today, talking about what it means to take the name of the Lord your God in vain, is one that's had a special part of my heart because there's some things, just as I've been on my personal faith journey through the years, there's some really key things that I've learned about this that I didn't understand early that have been transformational for me. And so I'm excited to share some of those things. Kind of weird thing. I woke up this morning, I was getting ready to come, had my clothes laid out, and our teacup chihuahua decided to relieve herself on my clothes. And so I'm not sure what that means. It knocked me off for a minute. I feel like there was some opposition against the morning. So I think God may really have something he wants to say, you know. At least I'm believing that. No, I really do. I think there's some big things. And so I ask that you would just follow with me through this and not just, it's pretty easy when it's Ten Commandments. I know the Ten Commandments. What more could I know? I mean, it's, this verse here, I'll read it for you. Exodus 20, verse 7. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. It means nothing is pointless. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Yeah, I think one of the big truths for me with this is just the whole idea of where the Ten Commandments, where they fit. Because, my faith journey started pretty early, and I began to get my mind and my heart around that salvation, that righteousness was not something I could attain on my own, that I was in desperate need, that through grace, something I didn't deserve, by faith in this incredible Jesus, believing in something that I've never seen, that his righteousness could make it possible if I would trust in him, his death and resurrection and life would then make it possible for me to be made right with God. And so in that wonderful realization and that faith that I placed in him and the grace that I received, then I began to learn more about these rules, and I tried to figure out, where do these fit now, right? Because, obviously I couldn't keep them, but now I've got this relationship with him, and these things seem a bit out of place. And so for the longest, I just didn't really know. And this one in particular was kind of just a weird thing to me that I couldn't quite understand. And then I really started studying the teaching of Jesus. When he begins his personal ministry, one of the first things that he says is that he didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. So in some way, what Jesus' teachings in his life, like there's a part of this that's incomplete. It was a start. It was down the road, but it wasn't a full circle. And now Jesus is coming to fulfill it and to complete it. Also in the letters in the New Testament, the one to the Galatians, Paul says that the law serves as this tutor, this guardian, this teacher that reveals to us our brokenness and our sinfulness, and we realize how desperate we are. We realize how far from holiness we are, and we see the difference. I was with the twins. We were on a ride the other day, a drive, and we were on 112 through a lot of the smaller communities, smaller road, and I made the mistake. We had a place that we were going, and I actually used my maps, and so my phone was laid out with the map pulled up, and you know what it does? It shows the speed limit of wherever you are. And so, Jack's my co-pilot, and he sees that, and he also sees my speedometer, and so he's like, Dad, it's 40. You're supposed to be going 40 right here. You're going 41. Dad, it's 30 through the town. You're not going 30. You know, it's like every single time, and you know, it changes all the way. If you've been down 112 from Bentonville all the way down to, it's like it changes every time. It would change. Dad. Now it's 50. You can go faster. You know, it's just letting me know where I was. Normally, I don't even pay attention when I get in the small. I do drop it below 30 because you will get a ticket. But normally, I'm not paying attention most of the time. But Jack was letting me know. You know, those signs, I guess, should be letting me know. But he was making sure, even when the sign wasn't there, that I was well aware. And that's what Galatians is saying, is that this law, it's revealing to us, reminding us. And the reality that if salvation, if righteousness could be achieved by keeping the law, then, right, Jesus died for nothing. His coming was pointless. And so we know it's not possible on our own strength. And then we see that, man, we really are broken. You know, Jesus goes on to say, hey, and part of the fulfillment of this law, he's like, hey, I know that you heard it was said, don't murder. Guys, it's actually much more than that. It's not just did you commit the act of murder. It's what's going on in your heart. You've heard it said don't commit adultery, but it's deeper. It's lust, y'all. It's what's going on. God sees the heart. He knows what's going on at this level. And so Jesus takes it to this whole other place. It's like, you know, when you tell your kid, hey, don't touch the stove, and they don't touch the stove, but inside their heart, you know, I heard a guy said one time, I'm agreeing outside, but in my heart, I'm standing up. You know, I'm disagreeing. So, like, if the heart is ugly, the breaking of the law is at the heart level. And so in that fulfillment of what this means, it's like, man, yes, yeah, I may not have killed somebody, but have you had anger? Has it happened in the heart? And so you start to see this picture that these commandments, we're just so far from being able to keep them. But if there was one, all right, so if I named them all off and you were like, okay, I broke that one, but maybe, just maybe, I could control my lips well enough to not curse the name of God. You know, like maybe, just maybe. So when I was little, I mean, that's really what I pictured, that's what this meant. Do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Means do not use it inappropriately. Do not say it disrespectfully. Do not cuss and say his name. And I remember, we lived out in the country. The bus stop was about 200 yards from my house. And I remember getting off the bus, walking, and before I even got to our mailbox, I was mad about something that had happened that day. I don't remember whether it was subconsciously or verbally that I did it, but I remember saying his name disrespectfully and immediately being convicted because I thought that's the fullness of what this meant. Being convicted, expecting that, you know, maybe lightning's going to fall, worried that a bear's going to jump out of the woods and come maul me before I get home. I mean, like the end of the world. What might happen now because I have broken this command? And we're going to see as we look at this today, it is that. But y'all, it is so much more than just that. I remember when that happened, I felt a little bit like Ralphie in the Christmas Story. It's like, I have said the mother of all cuss words. What's going to happen now? And so let's just go through. Yeah, it means disrespecting the name for sure. Saying this name without reverence. The name means something. And so to say it flippantly and to say it without, you know, care or meaning or honor is a disrespect of the name. In fact, we see it in Leviticus chapter 24. This picture, there's this boy. He's got an Israelite mom. He's got an Egyptian dad. He gets into a fight in the camp. While he's in the fight, he curses the name of God, the name of Yahweh. And God says this: whoever blasphemes the name of the Lord shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall stone him, the sojourner as well as the native. When he blasphemes the name, he shall be put to death. And they did. They stoned the guy. And it brings attention. It's a serious thing to God. This name is important. And when I say name, you're going to see the more I talk about it, I don't just mean the word. I mean the reputation of this God, you know? And, you know, I've noticed, in fact, I get made fun of, and even sometimes I can tell that people maybe disagree a little bit, that I am fiercely loyal to the teams I support, to the things I believe in, to the places I'm from. And so a lot of times, I'll talk about those places with a lot of pride. And if somebody tries to say something other, I had a guy walk by the other day. Me and Brennan were working on his Camaro, and the guy walked by, and then later on he said, "I saw you working on your Mustang." Now, yeah, you may not know. My granddad taught me to be a Chevy guy, and the audacity that this guy would think that we had a Mustang in our driveway, it hurt me at a core level. Like, man, I'm gonna have to. And Terry's like, no. But then, also, our boys, they wrestle. The twins are getting ready to be on in a wrestling club. The older boys wrestled on this one team, and there is a rival team, and we don't like the rival team. Anything about the rival team? I've heard there's nice people over there, but I don't believe it because they're on the other team. And they wrestled all the way up through, youth, and then into high school, they're still wrestling. And I just, I got my team. Terry says the other day, hey, maybe the twins should go practice with them. We've had the worst fight we've had in years. What are you talking about? We're going to go wrestle with them. Of course we're not going to go wrestle with them. To me, the name and the things that matter to us, they matter to us. If God's name and us being on his team, if that matters, then we're fiercely loyal. The name means something. I've said we're from this little town, DeQueen. DeQueen means nothing to you, but to us, man, it means something. We were on this little trip the other day, and we met this couple that we just met. They were from Florida. I could tell from the conversation in just a few minutes, we both picked up there. I mean, these people think pretty highly of themselves, And they were like, oh, you guys are from Arkansas. So surely you guys can appreciate the pride for the state, even if you are a transplant. And so I walked away. When I came back, I walked into a conversation where, the wives were talking about how swimsuits were difficult to find. Terry said something about, hey, Dillard's, sometimes has some good swimsuits. And this lady says, I didn't even know they had Dillard's in Arkansas. Now, you may not know this, but it was a shining, prideful moment for me because I said, actually, Dillard started in Arkansas. Mic drop. Yeah, does it matter? Does the name, when you say it, and also I think when you say Yahweh, when we say God, sometimes we take some power out of it, but when we say the name Jesus, when we say the name Yahweh, when we bring attention to that name, it matters, and we don't just throw it out. We give it the honor that it deserves. This command also means not using the name as leverage. Leviticus 19:12 says it this way: "You shall not swear by the name falsely, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord." You shall not swear by the name falsely. Don't tag his name onto something that you've said. And now Jesus refers to this as well, like to add his name to it, like if I add his name to it, because I surely wouldn't lie about it if I added God's name to it. So I'm adding God's name to it so that I'm telling the truth. Jesus says, why don't you just let your yes be yes and your no be no? Why does there have to be this extra level, like the double dog there, it's like I don't just say it, but I gotta up the ante. I gotta say more. I gotta add his name to it because you can't just trust me. Don't use his name as this leverage in the conversations and in the relationships that you have. He's too big for that. This name, his reputation, it's too important. It's too powerful. It should be honored and not just thrown around, especially if anything that you would be trying to accomplish in a false way. It also means not using the name to manipulate, to try to use this name to convince somebody, not just leverage, but to really try to convince them of something different. In Jeremiah chapter 23, it says, "I've heard what the prophets have said, who prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed. It says earlier in chapter 23 that they're filling you with vain hopes, speaking visions of their own words. not of the mouth of the Lord. So these prophets are saying, thus saith the Lord, this thing for you. But it's really just their desire for you. But they're tagging on to it, God said. Now, I don't know if you've ever had anybody do this, come to you and tell you something that they tag onto it, well, God said this. I'm just giving a warning. Be really, really, really careful what you receive from somebody that says that, or if you would ever say that, because you're tagging onto it this, the level of the Word of God. And you got to be real careful. We were in a church one time where there was this guy who started to do this pretty often. It was amazing. He would hear from God for me on his lawnmower. It was always on his lawnmower. I was riding on my lawnmower the other day, and God told me, you should blank, 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 blank. Really interesting that he felt the freedom to say that to me, and I would go looking, trying to figure out exactly, where is this coming from? Is this just from this man? Because he just said it's from God. I saw people make decisions based on what somebody said, God had said, and I thought, that's interesting. In fact, one of this guy's best friends, he had a yellow legal pad, and he would write those things down on the yellow legal pad and then hand the yellow legal pad page to you. And at the time, I was in college ministry, and there were a lot of college students around this guy, and they would bring the yellow legal pad paper in, and they would say, this is what I'm supposed to do with my future. And I said, they said, God said this. I'm like, man, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. You need to be really careful. These prophets that we talked about here in Jeremiah, when you prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord, you better be really sure it's thus saith the Lord. You don't just throw that out. That's not something you use meaninglessly or flippantly. But then I think the biggest one for me, and this is the one I was talking about earlier that really shook me a bit, is the idea of taking the name and his name, meaning his reputation. That's really what we're talking about when we're talking about his name. When I was about 13, my dad did the same thing with my older brother. He did this with me. I've done this with our older boys. But the twins and I will have this conversation at some point. When we got old enough to be out and about on our own and to do things that might shed poorly on the name of our family, my dad, in this small community where he had worked really hard, that our name meant something and could be respected and trusted, he would sit us down and say, son, now you're going to take this name, and I'm not going to be with you all the time, and you're going to be out and about, and wherever you go, you take the name. Son, protect the name. Live in such a way that when people think about that name, they believe they can trust it because it's trustworthy. Do right by this name. When we see take the name and don't take it in vain, it means take this name and this reputation that we have as children of God and treat it with honor. Represent him as he truly is, which we could all agree, out there, and out there close, his reputation seems to always be in question. And a lot of things that have been communicated about who Jesus is, about how this God works, how he deals with us, I hear things all the time like, where did that come from? That's not true about the Jesus that I follow. Seems like a lot of my conversations are that way, where somebody will tell me the reasons why they have trouble with God, the reason they have trouble with Jesus, and when they finish, I'm like, but that's not true. Where did that come from? He's been represented inappropriately. It's a big deal. When Terry married me and she took my name, she took this name in the same way. Now there's a responsibility in her life to also carry that name well. When we chose to follow Jesus and we took the name, it means something. Exodus 19, just to give you this picture, this is just before the Ten Commandments, or actually when Israel's still in Egypt, and these different plagues are coming down upon Egypt, and each one of these plagues is targeted towards one of the deities that the Egyptians worshipped. And so God is bringing not just down Egypt, he's not just setting the people free. It's not just about for their good, although they get some benefit of being set free. He's leaving no doubt that these other gods are small and he is big, and there's not even any competition. And so he says to Moses to say to Pharaoh, it's for this purpose, Exodus chapter 9, verse 16, it's for this purpose I have raised you up, to show you my power, so that my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. What's going on in the story? Man, I raised you up so that my name will be proclaimed in all the earth. What's happening in these moments is I'm identifying who I really am. And so the whole world can know that Yahweh is the true God. You know, also, we talked about this a little bit last week, but when Israel makes the golden calf and God sees what they've done, he says, man, I think we're just going to destroy it. It's over. Look at them. Look at what they've done. And Moses argues and pleads for God to have mercy on Israel. And this is what he says in Exodus 32. Look how it begins. Why should the Egyptians say? This is the way that Moses makes the plea that God would relent from destroying them. Why should the Egyptians have the right to say, with evil intent did he bring them out, to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? God, turn from your burning anger and relent from this disaster against your people. Remember, God, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your offspring as the stars in the heaven, and all of this land that I have promised I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord relented from the disaster that he had spoken of bringing on the people. Do you ever pray like that? Or look at the circumstances and the things that are happening around you and in the world, in your life, and consider the name. Consider the reputation. Consider what God might be doing. Praying according to that. That God, I want this to happen, but I know it's bigger than just his good, my good, their good. That's part of the story. But in this story of Israel being set free, it's a lower tier part of the story. The higher goal and purpose is God is making his name great on the planet so others can also know and experience this incredible grace and mercy and relationship with God. They can experience the person of Yahweh. And so he says, why should the Egyptians have the right to say that? God, don't do that. If you did that, they would say, don't do that. Do this so that the name can be proclaimed in truth. Y'all, this is a reoccurring theme. So in the Psalms, it talks about it. I'll go to Psalm 106. It says, our fathers, when they were in Egypt, did not consider your wondrous works. They did not remember the abundance of your steadfast love, but rebelled by the sea, at the Red Sea. Yet he saved them. Why? For his name's sake, that he might make known his mighty power. That's what God was doing. It's just a big thing as followers of Jesus for us to get that it's so much bigger than us. In his name and his reputation are so important so that others can experience his grace and mercy too, and not just us. It is about our good, but it's incomplete to stop there. Psalm 79, it says this, help us, O God of our salvation. Why? For the glory of your name. Deliver us and atone for our sins. Why? For your name's sake. Why? Again, why should the nations say, where is their God? This should be a core to the way we live our lives and the way that we pray. And we realize that his name and his reputation are so critical and so important that we handle them, not just like they don't matter, not in vain, but we care about the name. We care about the reputation. We want him to be known as he truly is, globally, locally, in our home, in our lives. And then one of my favorites, because I think it's the one I missed forever, right underneath your nose, Psalm 23. Right? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness. Why? For his name's sake. You know, this is one of those Psalms that I would often go to, and I would real quickly make it all about me. And right in the middle of it is, what's the reason? Why would he do those things? What's the big thing that he's trying to accomplish? He's making his name great, his reputation on the planet clear, so that everybody can see it, so that everybody can know. Do you care about that? We've got a friend that's 12. I think he's 12 years old, and this dude, man, he is like none other 12-year-old I've ever met before. He's an old kind of soul, so he'll sit around with the adults and talk shop. You know, if he was here right now, he'd walk up to you and you'd be like, "Man, is this kid's 12?" So of course, at school, all the teachers love him. He's just a personality, and he does what he's supposed to do, and he doesn't get in trouble. And it's been important to him that he has that reputation at the school where he's a kid that does what he's supposed to do. Well, this year, the way that when somebody gets in trouble, one of the first things that happens, and it's not a huge deal when you get your first hole punch, but if you get a bunch of hole punches, it becomes a problem. And he had never gotten a hole punch. And his teacher, there was a little bit of disagreement. He said he turned in the paper. She said that he didn't, and she gave him a hole punch. Now, you got to love this dude, because he walked home that day, and he was telling us, man, my reputation. I am known as the kid who I don't get hole punches. I do the things you're supposed to do. I treat the teachers with respect. She's giving me this hole punch, and I don't even deserve it. And he was angry. Then he walked through, a couple days later, he walked through the lunchroom, and he heard that teacher talking to another teacher about him. And he went up to the teacher. I don't know if I would advise this to a 12-year-old, but he went up to the teacher, and he's like, "Ma'am, I heard you using my name. I heard you talking about the hole punch. Did you tell the story correctly? Because I want to make sure, because it matters to me what the other teachers think about me." Man, that's some courage, right? I don't know if you would have done that. I don't know if I would have done that at 12. But you can see as he's talking, man, how much it matters, how much his reputation matters to him, that everybody rightly understands who he is and what he cares about and what he's there to do. Y'all, do you care at that level about our God and about our Jesus and what's said about him, what your life communicates about him? You know, I told you last week I've got this summer to have a few weeks of sabbatical, kind of step back a little bit and think about things and some deeper time with the Lord. And one of the big things that's kind of emerged from that is just kind of a resurgence of vision, I guess, and some passion. And it really does center around this. Because it really does feel like there is a lot of miscommunication out there, a lot of false narratives about who this Jesus is. And what are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we trying to accomplish? One, to really actually know who he is and how he deals with us and what it means to follow him. But then also to help others understand that, not just by the words of our mouth, by the way we live our life, by the way we care for them, to rightly honor the name, our Jesus. So if it's cool with y'all, I'd just like to pray that God would light that fire in us. Father, I know that as it has always been, a lot of things are said about you. You are given the blame for a lot of things. You are misunderstood often. And a lot of those things are the very barriers and walls that keep people from even being open to truth about you. And Father, I want to be a person. I want us to be a people who really do, who see you rightly, who talk about you rightly, who embrace you and experience the abundant life that you've called us to, so that, not just so that we'll enjoy life and have a great time and spend eternity with you, but so that those around us might know who you really are. They might know why we really love you. They might understand the reason why we so much realize and experience our dependence and our hopelessness apart from you. That you are. Our righteousness is in you and you alone. And your name means something to us. Father, I pray that you would light that fire afresh in us to your glory. Amen.